because I want to have this conversation with her. And she's here a little early, which is fantastic. We are joined with the woman herself, Margaret Kimberley. Margaret Kimberley is senior columnist and editor for Black Agenda Report and author of Presidential, Black America, and the Presidents. Welcome to the show. How you doing this morning? You doing all right?
I'm good. Thank you. Good to be back.
Oh, it is always good to have you. I want to show two clips. The first clip is Thune, Majority Leader in the Senate. And Thune comes out after the threats that were coming out of Democrats that they were going to shut the government down. And Thune says this. He says this. I'm fascinated by this. We'll talk about it. I'm fascinated by this. This is Thune basically saying, look, if you're going to do this,
Mr. President, as the expression goes, it's time for Democrats to fish or cut bait. We have 2 days until government funding expires. Democrats need to decide if they're going to support funding legislation that came over from the House or if they're going to shut down the government.
You need to make a choice on what you're going to do. This is not up to us. This is on you. Either you shut it down or you pass the resolution. All right. Now, many Democrats were screaming, shut it down, shut it down, shut it down. We're not going to accept this. Chuck Schumer was one of those people screaming, we're not going to accept this. And if we need to shut the government down, we'll do it. 2 days before the government actually shuts down, Schumer comes out and says, to the ire of every Democrat in the House, comes out and says this.
This week, Democrats offered a sensible way out. Fund the government for another month to give appropriators more time to do their jobs. Republicans rejected this proposal outright. Why did they reject it? Because Donald Trump doesn't want the appropriators to do their job. He wants full control over government spending. He isn't the first president who wants this, but he's the first president to cower his party into submission, so that Republican rejection leads us to a decision. That Republican rejection leads us to a decision. And it's not really a decision, it's a Hobson's choice. Either proceed with the bill before us or risk Donald Trump throwing America into the chaos of a shutdown. This, in my view, is no choice at all. While the CR bill is very bad, the potential for a shutdown has consequences for America that are much, much worse. For sure, the Republican bill is a terrible option. It is not a clean CR. It is deeply partisan. It doesn't address far too many of this country's needs.
That's going far too long. Effectively, as you noted, as you pointed out, passing this is bad, shutdown is worse. And this is 3 minutes of him capitulating and explaining why he is capitulating in this overt way. This is astonishing. The notion that you would take your party out on a ledge like this, where we're in it for the fight, we're going to shut it down. Damn, we're going to shut it down. We're not going to accept this. And then 2 minutes to midnight, okay, I know he said we're going to shut it down. But we've decided that it is worse to shut it down. So everything that we said before, forget that. We're now going to pass this continuing resolution, in which case they're going to come out. Schumer is going to marshal his powers in order to pass this bill for the continuing resolution. That's astonishing. Like, A, they got nothing out of it.
Well,
B, it's curious whether they were going to get anything out of it ever. And yet
right.
Schumer took his party out thus far only to back away and back off the ledge. Democrats in the House are pissed. They are pissed. Give me your take on this.
Well, I'm not surprised at all. Schumer's a company guy. He's a centrist. He's not the kind of person with the guts to do this. I mean, that would be a gutsy thing to be the one to shut the government down. In ordinary circumstances, most people do not like government shutdowns. Mm-hmm. And it hurt Newt Gingrich back in the 90s. It hurt Trump during his first term. So it's a difficult choice. I think it would have been appropriate because, you know, we keep hearing that Trump is a fascist. He's an existential threat. He's Hitler's cousin. He's this, he's that. Well, if he's all of those things, you have to do something radical to fight him. But Democrats are not fighters. If they're out, they go along to get along and they cut deals, and they know if there's a Republican president and they're in the minority, they're not going to get much, but they go along. I mean, essentially, rhetorically, they may claim they're fighting for the people or whatever. So this is not, they don't know what to do. They literally do not know what to do because Trump is not playing that game. He's like, it's my way or the highway. I want to run everything. I'm firing federal workers without a spending bill. I'm letting some, rich guy hang out in the Oval Office and come to cabinet meetings and tell me what to do. He is dispensing with the old system. He's getting rid of it. So there's no way to fight it. I mean, it is a difficult fight, but you have to think, I hate to use the term outside the box, but I guess that does fit. So to say we're going to go along with the guy who's a fascist, who's Hitlerite, then you're complicit too. And everybody wants to make this Hitler analogy. I say, well, one of the things that helped Hitler was that there was a weak liberal class. So he didn't really have any opposition. So you want to talk about Hitler? Let's talk about that.
Weak liberal class. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Please.
Yeah. So we have liberals who we have people. They don't even fight other Democrats. Remember when Biden was in and they all caved? All the progressives, quote unquote, the squad, everybody caved to him. So they won't fight when it's an easier thing to do. So we're pretty much screwed. And we have to look outside of the electoral system because they are not going to save us from this.
What's wild about this is a part of Schumer's reasoning for doing this and going out on a ledge like this, again, only to capitulate. That it's that part that blows my mind, that it's a bluff. It was only a bluff, but the bluff came out of effectively Democrats screaming at Democrats to do something. Like you have all of these liberal groups that apparently Hakeem Jeffries are bugging the hell out of him, and effectively saying they're firing all of these workers, they're getting rid of all of these people, they're destroying these agencies. What are you doing to stop it? It was that. And that line of rhetoric coming out of, let's say, liberal groups push Democrats to effectively say, we are going to be a hedge against Donald Trump's agenda in the context of this continuing resolution. Okay, fair enough. But what Chuck Schumer also knew, and what they were having conversations behind the scenes about, according to the articles in Axios and Punchbowl, was they knew they were going to capitulate. Meaning, when they're talking to each other, they're like, we don't have any cards. We can't do this. We can't shut it down. We know at some point we're going to have to capitulate. And yet the rhetoric that kept coming out of them was, we're going to stand strong. We're going to stop Trump. We're going to prevent this agenda. And again, it's not that they're wrong about the agenda. I want people to realize that they have been firing federal workers. They have been going after federal agents, basically preventing them from being able to function in a normal capacity. And the continuing resolution, yeah, it cuts stuff, but it cuts stuff in a way Republicans would typically cut stuff. It's not like it's some kind of magical thing. It's a Republican in office, and they cut stuff according to the things that are not their priorities. That's not shocking. Any random Republican that goes into office would do that, but they are doing that. The continuing resolution, a lot of that stuff is so vague that it allows Trump more leeway in order to move money around into things that he wants versus things that he don't want. That's their issue. That's their main complaint. In regards to the continuing resolution, I guess my thing is, you hyped all of these people up as if you were going to shut the government down when you knew behind the scenes it never was going to happen. You were never going to do it. And you were telling each other that it wasn't going to happen. How is this a benefit to the party? That's the part I don't get. I would have a little more respect for him if he'd said all along, I'm not doing that. You know me, yes. I'm not doing it. I'm not going to shut down the government. And to make public statements implying that he might, leading his caucus to think that he would,
respectful of, but that's the Democratic Party. They're also worried about their oligarchs. Everybody, Bernie
Mhm.
Sanders is running around talking about Republican oligarchs like the Democrats don't have them. Those people are also whispering in Chuck Schumer's ear. You'd better not. I mean, it's interesting because a lot of those people have stopped giving money. They're so angry about Kamala
Yeah.
Harris losing, raising $1 billion, and then she lost. They were like, "We're out. Y'all better figure this out." So, but I'm sure that doesn't end. That momentary anger. So Schumer's taking the long view. What about our funders? What are they going to? I mean, because that's who they
Oh,
represent. They
good
don't
point.
represent us. And I
Oh,
think
that is
that's
such.
that's another reason for how this turned out.
Oh, that is such a good point. Punchbowl News points out, and I love like this article is so brutal. It's not normally just brutal. It's brutal. It says during this whole fight, Democrats never managed to put Mike Johnson and Senator Majority Leader John Thune and Trump in a tough spot. There are plenty of policies House Democrats could have asked for in the continuing resolution, more money for certain programs, for instance, that would have placed Republicans in a bind. But they never made the case for anything like that. Meaning, it's like you had a policy fight without picking any policy that you're fighting over. You're just fighting over the entirety of the continuing resolution that nobody knows what's in it. Like, meaning, if you're talking to a random person on the street, nobody knows what's in the continuing resolution. The only thing they know is Republicans are pushing the continuing resolution, Democrats don't like it. And so it's not like you're going out and making them look bad for doing this. You are just saying, this sucks. We don't like it. We want to stop it. And their point is, okay, that got you nowhere. That gets you nowhere. Nobody cares because nobody had anything specific where they can point to and say, okay, that's a big deal that you shouldn't be able to get rid of, in which case Republicans are on the spot for doing so. Democrats didn't even do that. Like, this is fascinating to me. God, man, they're missing the boat. Like, I
Well,
don't know how you can
but
do
that's
this
what they
bad.
do. That's who they are. They don't, they can't even figure out a way to articulate what's wrong with what Trump is doing. That Congress created the Department of Education, that Congress
Yep.
created USID, and they can't be dismantled without congressional approval. At least put the Republicans on the spot. I suspect a lot of Republicans are uneasy by these very radical moves by Trump and Musk, but they're going along because he's their president. And I don't know if it's still true, but there are people like him. And so, Democrats can't even articulate what the problem is. And there you go. You have a stock market drop.
Collapsing.
I mean, that's something that nobody likes. That everybody knows there's something wrong with that. You have a pension. There's a stock portfolio in your pension, or you're retired. Your 401k. What does that mean?
Mhm.
But all these obvious things that they can't even express, don't even come up with a new narrative. They cannot believe what they're witnessing, and they literally have no idea what to do because what they do is represent other people. They represent big pharma and the banks and APAC and this one and that one. And they're concerned about us. Did you notice there's absolute consensus on allowing Israel to continue its genocide in
Yeah.
Gaza? They made a big fuss about Ukraine, which was, phony, but there's no difference at all between the two parties. And it's that kind of things. They're always colluding. That was a big word in the first Trump administration. There's absolute collusion. And this is where we see it. And people talk about fighting back, but see what they did last week during Trump's speech to Congress, the not State of the Union speech, which really was a
Right.
State of the Union speech. I'm not sure what you call it, but anyway. And Congressman Al Green, all he did was stand up and shake his fist and shake his cane and yell something, and Democrats join in the censoring. And I'm like, what are you doing? But they, if he's Hitler, somebody should at the very least be standing up and shaking their cane at him, right? So we see how phony they are. Well, phony to us, to the people, and how their role is not to do what we want them to do. So when somebody comes along with the hatchet, with the buzzsaw, as Elon Musk does, and says, I'm going to have huge cuts to Medicaid, and people are worrying even about their Social Security. This is a moment to show something new, but they don't have anything new. They don't have
As they
anything.
should. Yeah. I mean, if you contact Social Security, you would hear waiting times have increased by several months because of cuts to Social Security. Basically, because of the number of people that have been fired, we are no longer capable of doing this stuff in a timely fashion. So your times are extended. Okay, well, that's not good. Like, if you're 65, you don't want to hear that. If you are disabled, you don't want to hear that. And yet, there it is because of the things that are effectively being done to those organizations. Why do you think? I mean, a political party is pointless if it can't win. And the notion that you're losing to somebody like Trump, somebody who literally tried to overthrow the government of the United States, got 1 million people killed during COVID. And yes, my audience disagrees with me on COVID. I don't care. They're wrong. 1 million people killed during COVID. Like, you as a political party, if nothing else, meaning the context to which you run it, we need to get elected. And we need to create a coalition in order to get elected. How? Like, I don't understand how you have an election where you lose the working class. And there is no come to Jesus moment in it at all. It is purely still reflexive and reactive to Trump. It's not like some political coalition came together and said, you know what, we got this wrong. 3 a.m. between our God, we had a moment. And we are now organizing ourselves. Even if you're working in the context of the rich, you still need to get elected. What are they missing? Because they are, like, as a party, worthless. Like, meaning, in order to get anything done as a political party, they are a worthless entity. What do you think they're missing? Or maybe I'm missing something in regards to what I think political parties are
It's funny
supposed
you
to do.
should say that, because I and others have argued they're not really a political party anymore. They're like a money laundering operation. With all these this veneer of democracy and government and a political party, they're a money laundering operation for rich people. They do believe there's some basics of the welfare state that they support, Social Security, Medicaid, etc. But they are not here. What do they do when anybody expresses like a progressive, slightly progressive thought? They get hammered down. Their goal is to, I was reading that, Rahm Emanuel wants to run for president. That was his whole political thing, was beating up on anybody a tiny bit to the left. So that's what the Democrats are. We have a far right party and a center right party, and I'm not even so sure how center they are anymore. So what you expect, the questions you ask, doesn't a political party do this or do that? Well, they're not really a political party. And James Carville, I don't know why he's still, giving his 2 cents worth of opinion, but he said, well, there's nothing for us to do. We don't have anything to do. Trump is going to unravel, and they're just waiting to the midterms next year. That's their whole plan, is not to, they're hoping that these, many of these lawsuits obstruct Trump a little bit, and then they'll wait for the midterms. That's their whole plan, is to wait for the midterms. What you should be doing, if the Republicans say we have to cancel town halls because their people are saying, wait a minute, I didn't think you meant me, which I think is kind of funny. I don't really have sympathy for these Republicans who say, I didn't vote for this. Yes, you did. But anyway, they had an expectation of other people being hurt, not that it was you're a farmer and you don't get your money from the USDA and you're about to go under. But so if they cancel town halls, what should Democrats be doing? Holding town halls. You don't need a visa to hold a town hall. Do it yourself. Well, since the president says you can't have a town hall, here we are. Here I am, Chuck Schumer, and I'm going to have a town hall in, red state Podunkville. That's what you would do if you were a real political party. but that's not what they are. And so, I think they're hoping that these lawsuits can stop Trump and that they just wait around till next November and they get a majority, at least in the House. The Republican majority is varies. It's by 2 or 3 votes, something like that, very small.
Very small.
And hoping that they can at least win one House so they can cut deals some more, not actually so they can stop any of this or even articulate what is wrong with this, why it is wrong for. I mean, Elon Musk is flying around on Marine One, the president's I thought it was the president's helicopter. Why is he on Marine One if Trump was on and he was his guest? All right, but it was like an Uber service for this man, and whose goal is to tear up government. He said so. That's his goal. They want to operate government as little as possible. They're not touching the defense budget. Have you noticed that? Use AI
billions.
Yes, to replace people. So who cares if? Do you remember when Social Security used to be called the third rail of politics because you couldn't touch it? Not anymore. You can touch anything. So to have this party with so little imagination, but they're not fighters. They're not fighters. They are company people. They are part of the system. They want to be part of the government, permanent government. And if they need to fight for us, the answer is no. They helped Joe Biden lie to us. Remember when Biden first came in, I'm going to cut child poverty in half. I knew that was BS. I knew that wasn't happening. They wouldn't even call him on it. So
no, they wouldn't fight him on it. I mean, to be fair, I approve of that policy. It was effective with Social Security for kids. Because to me,
it would have been good.
Yeah, it would have been great. They did it for 8 months. And then they lost the vote in the Senate because of Christian Cinema and Joe Manchin. This is deeply frustrating to me.
Well, it's one of the reasons it's something that's not mentioned very often. I think it's the biggest reason Kamala Harris lost. I think it's the biggest reason that Biden's approval ratings were so anemic. If I have said jokingly, if people still had their child tax credit, nobody would have cared that Biden was senile. People would have said, he's looking a little senile, but whatever, I'll still vote for him. He wouldn't have even had to drop out.
Agreed. Look, if you're telling somebody a $400 check is going to be in your box every month, that's money in your pocket. Do you vote for somebody who's going to take that away? No, you don't. Right.
It's one month you have it, the next month you don't. The people who were kicked off of Medicaid, the unwinding, as they called it, where they, during COVID, relaxed the eligibility rules and there were more people on Medicaid and more people on SNAP. They just kicked them off. And I think that was their margin of defeat, frankly.
And by the way, this happened just before the election.
Yes, it all happened in early 2024.
Yeah.
So, you didn't hear, there were all kinds of explanations, complicated explanations that didn't make sense to most people. I thought you had the majority in the Senate, then they lost in the midterms. But this is a party living on its reputation as the party of the people. What did they say? Most progressive president since FDR. I knew that was nonsense. They didn't even talk about LBJ. I was like, that's why we have Medicare and Medicaid. And but at any rate, so they sold themselves that way. And the thing that's so insidious about that to me, that means they know what people want.
Yes.
They know what people want. And now you have a president determined to take all that away, all the things that they said were so important, that they said they were going to die on that hill. And there they are dying. They didn't even get on the hill. Much less die on
I guess from my point of view, this is just typical Republican stuff. This is their ethos. We do not believe in a government in general like this. I mean, maybe a tepid government, but not a government like a full-throated, great society government. Okay, fair enough. You're supposed to have another party that does believe in this great society, quote unquote, government, and they don't either. And when you get something tepid like, okay, we believe the kids are the future, and how those kids grow up is going to be a reflection of what those kids end up like. So we want to make sure that they have food, clothing, shelter. And the way we're going to do this is by giving 300, 400 bucks to parents with kids. That would have been like, it's hard to get across how much help that would have been growing up. And so this is one of those things I'm like, yeah, this is a good idea. You're putting money into people's pockets. That's what you should be doing anyway. I mean, how do you show that you are getting something accomplished in the sense of government that people can be aware of? I know there's a check. There's a check. Joe Biden could have even signed it. Signed by Joe Biden. You're welcome. That's how you do it, right? You have all of these people who still remember when Donald Trump gave them that check for COVID, which was, again, at the time, mind-blowing because the government usually doesn't give people anything in that sense. And so it's good policy, it's good public planning, and it is good optics. And they killed it. And you're absolutely right. Like, God, man, this is frustrating. Because what they're going to do is what you pointed out. It's what Nancy Pelosi said. At some point, they'll come back to us. We don't have to do anything. We don't have to change. We don't have to make any updates. We can point and say, hey, it looks like they're destroying Social Security. That's bad. Okay, that says nothing about you. That's you pointing at something bad. That's different, right? That is what they're going to do. And I'm glad you brought up Joe Biden. I saw this and I was like, okay, fair enough. Reality is what we thought reality was. Apparently, according to The Hill, and I just read it, the day before the debate or the day of the debate, Biden called to give Harris an unusual kind of pep talk and another reminder about loyalty. He demanded. No longer able to defend his own record, he expected Harris to protect his legacy. Whether she won or lost the election, he thought she would only harm him by publicly distancing herself from him, especially during a debate that would be watched by millions of Americans. To the extent that she wanted to forge her own path, Biden had no interest in giving her any room to do so. He needed just 3 words to convey how much all that mattered to him. No daylight, kid, Biden said. No daylight, kid. No daylight between us. It's you will go and you will defend the Biden legacy. Whether you win or lose the election, you will defend my legacy. Go out there and do it. No daylight, kid. Oh, that is mind-blowing. That is mind-blowing. That means Biden was like, look, man, I am on my last leg. I am going to be off this physical matter reality plane of existence in a few years. Defend my legacy. I don't care if you win or lose. It's not going to have an effect on me one way or the other. Defend my legacy. No daylight, kid. And I love the kid at the end. Oh, I love the kid at the end. It's intimate in a weird way.
It's very Biden-esque. It's very Biden-esque.
Yeah. Well, but there's intimacy to it. Like there's a
it's like your friends. It's like, I have friends who are older than me who called me kid. Yeah. Because they're in their 70s. I'm in my 60s. They're in their 70s and they call me kid. It's like your buddies, chums, sister, but something.
It's deeply manipulative. It's also deeply manipulative.
Oh, it's coming from him.
Yes, there's a level of intimacy associated with it. But that intimacy, on some level, is like, look, I know you're running in an election. I know it's the presidential election, meaning the grand stage. I don't care if you win it or lose it. We're buddies. We're friends. I'm your, I'm your
It's all
president.
about me.
It's all about me.
That's what he was saying. And this is why I have I was never a Biden fan, ever. But the fact Trump is president because of him. If the Democrat, the funny thing, I always thought these people were very cutthroat, the Nancy Pelosi, and she's one of the people who led the coup, she and Obama and others. I figured they were going to push him out. And so month after month, I kept saying they can't keep Biden. They can't keep him. And I remember a year to the day before Election Day, David Axelrod had this tweet showing Biden's approval ratings or lack of approval rating and saying, maybe he should think about what's best for the country. But he didn't. He was thinking about himself. Grandpa wouldn't give up the keys. And then, of course, and they let him And all these people who decided, the funders who decided to push him out in June or July, who didn't do it the year before when they could have, he could have been golden. If Biden had said, what did he say? He said something when he implied he'd be a one-term president. I'm a transitional. I can't remember.
Transitional, right?
Transitional. If he had really stuck with that and stepped down and had a primary so that the Democratic voters could choose who they wanted, the likelihood is they would have had a better chance to beat Trump. But he had to be dragged out kicking and screaming. And then they, give it to word salad lady at, try to shoehorn her in at the last minute. But and I don't know if this new book reveals he's the one who undercut the whole process. They were going to have some pretend open convention or something to give an impression that delegates had a choice, and he undermined everybody by endorsing Kamala Harris. Do you remember Obama didn't endorse her right away? It took him a couple of days. Yep. That's because Biden threw a wrench into the plan. So he's just a loathsome person. He didn't even care about his party. He cared about him. And the other thing that astounds me is there's a coup. He's gone. They got rid of him. Why are you listening to him?
Yeah, that's the other part, right? Like, it's one thing that, I'm sorry, please.
Yeah, it's like, I remember she was it Stephen Colbert? It was a friendly interview. And he asked, so how are you different from Joe Biden? And she just looked, she had that deer in the headlights look she could get. And then she said, well, I'm not Donald Trump. And that sort of explains her, aside from her, sometimes her inability to express herself. I think she was feeling that pressure too. But this just astounds me that, she would go along with what he said, that they didn't come up with a way. I mean, it was awkward. You don't want to stab him in the back, but you have to find a way to express how you're going to be different. Are you just Joe Biden in a dress, or, is there something different about you?
That's what he came across as.
Yes, Joe Biden in a dress. That explains a lot, but people should be throwing. She and Joe Biden should not be able to show their faces in public without getting hit by a rotten tomato. I'm sorry. That's why Trump is president now. But people, are still hesitant to talk about it. Well, we just have to focus on Trump. It's like, well, how did we end up here? Don't you want to avoid ending up like this again? But anyway.
I think people, you're right. And I think people need to kind of, they need to let that sink in. Like, they said that the man was Hitler. They say he was a fascist. They said we never have another election. They say he was going to shoot Liz Cheney in the face. They said all of this stuff, all of this like hysterical stuff. And simultaneously, look, you can't deviate from me. Even if Hitler wins, even if the fascists is going to shoot Liz Cheney in the face and get rid of all the media and all of the elections, and this is no longer going to be America because it's going to be Trump world. Even if that is the result, you can't deviate from me, kid. No daylight. Oh, that statement, no daylight, kid. I love it. I don't like what it means. I just love the statement. It's
hilarious.
It's hilarious. Like, it's 3 words. No daylight, kid.
And I want to say something else about Biden. Is it my imagination, or did he and Obama not speak at Carter's funeral or the inauguration?
From my understanding, I didn't see him speak. From my understanding, the reporting was that there was deep animosity between Joe Biden, in regards to what took place. They had feelings about Nancy Pelosi kicking them out. And what's wild about that, how does Joe Biden watch the debate that he was in and come away with the assessment, I can still beat him? How does he do that? Like, that's astonishing to me. That is a level of just willful self-blindness and delusion, every bit as much as Trump saying I won the election. It's astonishing.
It's delusion. That's the same word I was going to use. But this is a person who Obama once said about him, he's not very self-aware. That's a nice way of talking about Biden. He's not, to insist that he was okay in 20. But see, this is what the Democrats did in 2020. They decided to rig it for Biden. They wanted to get rid of Bernie. What did they tell us when we saw that Biden was in decline then? He has a stutter. It's just a stutter. And I said, that's a lie. All these years, I don't remember Biden having a stutter. Now he's got a stutter. I'm like, this is not. So they let this man become president and with no plan to make sure he was only a one-termer, because I think there was some luck involved in him winning, and winning at all in 2020. So they don't do anything. They hope they can convince him to leave, but he's Joe Biden. He's not going anywhere. Nobody wants to give up power. So, he doesn't want to go. People, they don't know what to do. They can beat up on everybody else. They can beat up on progressives and steal nominations from Bernie Sanders. But Joe Biden, they didn't know what to do. And he's taken down the whole ship is sinking because of him. So all that to say, why are we surprised that they won't stand up to Trump?
That's so, God, astonishing, man.
But that story cracked me up. No daylight, kid.
That story tripped me out. It's like,
listen, if it had been me, I would have said, why, yes, Joe, of course. And then I would have said whatever the hell I wanted.
Because you need to win. The entire point is to win. Like, the entire point is not, okay, I need to win in the context of making him feel good about himself. Okay, that's not it. That's not the rule. That's not the way it works. Like, it is a blood sport. Obama put a knife in Hillary Clinton in that race. Like, he had no issue about it at all. She was supposed to be the heir apparent. He didn't care. That's how you win races. And the notion that she is tethered to him and to policies that the American public fundamentally just didn't like. It's just amazing to me. One interesting thing that is popping up, Nate Silver is pointing out that Donald Trump's approval rating is dropping and is in serious decline over the things that Trump is doing. And you pointed out yourself, many people say, well, I didn't vote for him to do this. It's like, okay, well, what do you think? He's a Republican. He's going to do Republican stuff. When they said they wanted to get rid of the Department of Education, why did you think it was a joke? So Silver points out, this is getting reasonably fast decline. We launched this last week. Trump's approval rating is plus 0.5. It is now negative 0.17. It is declining. It is dropping like a rock. They released this last week, watching the calamity coming out of the White House. Oh, we're doing the tariff war. Oh, we're going after this country. Oh, we're going after that country. Everybody is taking advantage of America. And apparently the American public is like, okay, you're destroying these agencies that you know nothing about. If you believe that Elon Musk understands the inner workings of any of these agencies, you're out of your mind. He is a Johnny-come-lately looking at a very complex bureaucracy and is just taking a sledgehammer to the bureaucracy. Public doesn't like that. I will wager to you they don't like that. Even Republicans will probably have issues with that. Oh, we're going to try to destroy the Department of Education. Okay, well, it sounds like we need a Department of Education. You guys on the campaign trail said that Americans were too stupid to do many of these jobs, so they have to import them from overseas. And now you're simultaneously trying to take apart the Department of Education. I agree that there are issues with it in regards to, let's say, outcomes. But destroying it, it doesn't seem to be the way to deal with that situation.
You know, it's funny to me. Some of these were talking points among the right for years. We shouldn't have, because it used to be, remember, I think it was under Carter, it was HEW, Health, Education, and Welfare. And they spun off education into its own agency, and conservatives, for all these decades have been saying they don't like the Department of Education. But we can see also that a lot of them didn't really mean that, because they never did it. Even when there were Republicans in office and they had majorities in Congress, they never got rid of the Department of Education. What they want to do is get rid of regulations. They want to give money to states, no strings attached. If states want to discriminate, not provide bilingual education, not provide special education, they don't care. So that's the right-wing dream, is to have money without strings attached at all. So that's their goal. But that is a very dangerous thing, get rid of wokeness and all that stuff. But we see how they didn't really mean it. There was a part of the far right of the Republican Party who did, and now they're in. So all these things Republicans would say, they didn't really mean. So they're also going along. They're scared of Trump. But he can be unpopular and still have the power to do all these things.
He's president.
And Schumer and others are just assuming they'll do well in the midterms and somehow stop him. But even then, you would have to shut down the government, wouldn't you? Let's say Democrats win the House and the Senate in November of 2026, and Trump proposes a budget and they say no. You'd still have to shut the government down.
Yeah. At the end of the day, yeah. Or make a deal. One or the other. You don't get posed.
Yeah.
Do you think there's going to be a backlash to all of this? I mean, because my thought is
against Trump.
Yeah, I mean, and Republicans who are going along with it. I mean, if you destroy Social Security, destroy the Department of Education, even if you do it in a de facto sense where it just doesn't work well, will the public feel some kind of way about it, Republicans included, that they have? Because my thing is, they voted for Trump with the idea of, okay, this is a businessman. He's going to fix the economy. He's going to do some culture war stuff. Fair enough. Okay, we'll accept the culture war stuff. We may not like it. We may like it, whatever. But the economy is going to be ticking well. And then his first thing is, I'm going to have a tariff war against Mexico, Canada, China, Europe. I'm going to do all that at once, simultaneously. And then the economy starts ticking down. And they say, hey, is there going to be a recession? Maybe, but don't worry. It's going to work out. And I remember when Boris Johnson was, doing this shuck and jive over in the UK with Brexit. Oh, it's going to be great. We're going to be Fortress Britain. We're going to make deals with everybody. It's going to be fantastic. And then at a private gathering, he's like, this is going to hurt. He's like, this is going to hurt. This is going to be painful. Trump doesn't know what he's doing. I know what he's trying to do.
And he does not understand anything. I don't know what he understands other than self-promotion. And he's not a successful businessman. How many times did he go bankrupt? Every time he couldn't pay bills, he'd file 5 or 6 times. He was bankrupt. But people delude themselves too, because they believed in the rest, the white nationalism. They believed in that. And he was going to build a wall, get rid of immigrants, end wokeness, disappear Black people from public life. They were in favor. They did not think that they were going to leave the government job they'd had for 30 years.
Right.
They didn't think it's like, oh, you meant me? You meant me?
What?
So yes, he is going to be increasingly unpopular, but that alone isn't going to stop him. You can be unpopular and still have the proud powers of the presidency. So yes, he is going to be unpopular, but so what? So what?
Yeah. This has been 2 months?
Yeah.
It's been 2 months.
I said it feels like 10 years or something, but
it feels like it's been a long time. I mean, but look, I will be honest with you. I want a bit of chaos because I think this stuff needs to change. And I don't know how it changes.
It's like, but I'm always nervous about that because this country, people can be so nutty. It's like, are people going to rise up to save their Social Security? I mean, nature abhors a vacuum. Somebody's going to rise up. Who is that going to be? Is it going to be the far right? Is it good? Who will it be?
Like that is the establishment's argument, right? Like, hey, we are a finger in the wall. And I know you may not like us. They're worse. So you got to keep us in. And my thing is that model has to be broken. I think
it is broken. People are saying, what are you? You're not even saying anything. I mean, it's not even a rhetorical challenge. I mean nothing at this very crucial moment. So yeah, the chaos or the dialectics, could work out okay for us, but who knows? We don't know. And he's, everybody, of course, Democrats attack, and when they do attack him from the right. So when that crazy, shouting match with Zelensky and everything, they were like, he's cozying up to Russia. He's, not. I was like, no. So they did not bring up the point that everybody should be concerned with. He wants to normalize relations with Russia in order to target China.
Yes.
And that's very dangerous. But that's something that's never mentioned because Democrats also want to target.
That's what I was going to say. That's also Democratic policy. Like that's the wild part, right? On Gaza, same policy.
Yes.
On China, same policy. Obama was doing the Asia pivot. I mean, hell, he was trying to get the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Hillary Clinton had gotten in a position where it was so hated that she was like, I'm going to change the name. And Obama was like, I don't care what the public wants. We're going to do this. And she's like trying to get away from it as much as she can. It's both of their policies. Margaret, you are fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want one more thing. I just want to remind folks to buy my book.
Prejudential. I was going to call it Margaret Kimberley. She's a senior columnist and editor at Black Agenda Report and author of Prejudential, Black America and the Presidents. Get her book. It is going to be fantastic. Margaret, where can people find you, by the way?
blackagendareport.com. And I'm on X, Twitter. My handle is Freedom Ride Blog.
Thank you for this. You have a fantastic day. Thank you.
You too. All right.
All right.
Bye-bye.
This was a